Morning, everyone. This is Dr. Mike Chua again, physical therapist and certified dementia practitioner, and your alternative career coach. Today, we have a special guest. We have Mr. Gary and Nancy Morris. They're actually the inventor and the creator of the Footbar Walker, and we're just here to ask them and interview them about how they invented it and what's the purpose of the walker, because I believe it's really helpful. I saw patients. Actually, my own patient used it, and it was very effective for them to be able to pull up. Miss Nancy and Mr. Gary, thank you very much for letting me come into your awesome. This is actually their own office and the factory, so we're going to go around in a minute, show you how they make it. Not really how, but just show you the area and how the walker works and everything like that. So, Miss Nancy, Mr. Gary, how are you? And
Great.
So. Well, I guess my first question is, why did you invented this?
Well, in 2014, we visited some friends in Danville, Kentucky that they were 88 and 86 at the time, and I'd not seen them in a little while. We wanted to go visit them, and we knew that he had Lewy body dementia and a central tremor and was going through a third hip replacement. His wife of 86 was trying to take care of him at home, but we could see the toll that it was taking on her. And Gary had just retired from TVA, and he wanted to, he just said, I want to do something to help them. And he loves to make this sort of thing,
Wow.
He has a very creative genius about himself. And so he went to his shop. We came back from Danville, Kentucky, and he built the top bar and was trying to make it with where it would be self-sufficient for the patient, but it became trip hazards. And he came in one day for lunch, and I looked at what he had, and I said, I think those are trip hazards. Why don't you just put something here between the front two legs and give Peggy something she can put her foot on and stand on? And he said, I've never really thought of that. But he went and he created the prototype for something like this, and to our amazement, it worked really, really well.
Wow.
And she was able to take care of him at home for 4 years, additional years, and they said they could not have made it. He actually could not get up without the walker. His tremors and things were so bad.
Well, I've seen this, just for our audience and everybody, for both our dementia group and our therapy group. I've seen this work with some of our patients, and it is very, very useful. A lot of therapists will tell you, hey, it's not going to work because you have to tell your patients to push up from the chair. But there are certain patients that cannot even push up from the chair, and they need to pull up from a bar. And we've been training our patients to pull up from the bar in parallel bars. We've been training our patients to pull up from a bar when they are in the bathroom. Why can we not do it in a walker? And this is very, very, I wish I invented it, actually. We thought about it in the therapy world. We never took action. And this people here, Mr. Gary and Miss Nancy, they took action. And that's what I want you to realize, dementia group and alternative career group. They are in their late, not really late,
I'm 72.
She's 72.
He's actually 67.
She's 67.
So we average 70.
So, you see, that's the average there, 70. They still took action and implemented this in their lives. And this is like a two-edged sword. We can give this to our patient and give it to our patient. And if you're a caregiver right now, needing assistance in getting up to a patient, this is a very great tool that you can use. So going back to the invention, basically there's a bar on the top here that is attached, and there's a foot bar. Let me show it to you guys. So this is the walker right here. So I don't want to.
Okay.
Sit on the table.
It won't bother us.
If we break it.
No.
All right. Okay. So as you can see, Miss Nancy is in the middle, right? No, just kidding. So you can see you got the bar on the top, obviously, and there's a foot bar. That's why they call it Footbar Walker. So basically, it pulls down there, and the actual caregiver puts the foot and the foot bar, and the patient can pull up from here. And it is FDA, they registered it through FDA, am I correct,
Right.
Ms.
Yes.
Nancy? And then it's also patented, so nobody can copy or whatever you call that.
Our patents back then.
So with regards to safety and everything, could you tell us, Mr. Gary, what are the safety features or the whatever certification you had? Is it really sturdy? Did you do any kind of engineering research or background on it through universities or whatever?
Well, the universities came after the invention. I've always been a mechanical nature and have somewhat of a designing thought process. The thought was is that we could use the walker as a platform, and so we designed everything around it without any compromise to it, because the walker has a rating, and we didn't want to do anything. If we drilled holes in it or compressed it, it would change the fact of what it does. So we just built everything around it. It's all clamp fitted. There's nothing to compromise the walker at all.
And this one is designed for 350 pounds.
This one here? Oh, wow. It's designed for me then.
Yeah, at least.
The safeties involved in it, I think there's more than one safety factor involved. One of the concern is that if we leave it with a dementia patient or with someone who has trouble getting up, if they try to utilize it on their own, it works as a regular walker. So whatever conventional method that, from a therapeutic standpoint, that they utilize, that's what they have to rely on. It requires the caregiver to use this product as a footbar walker. And otherwise, it's just a walker. And it functions exactly the same way. So if you leave it with someone that is compromised in their health care, they have to use it as a walker.
There you go. All right, so just a clarification, like what Mr. Garrett said there, we're not putting in that this is a miracle walker or whatever. It is a regular walker, wherein there's a bar on the top and there's a foot bar at the bottom, and it is for the caregivers, not for the patient. So thank you for clarifying that. My next question, how...
Can I say something? We actually had a patient that referred to that as his miracle walker.
Miracle walker, there you go.
He was a 91-year-old patient that had fallen and crushed his hip. He'd broken it in 11 places and it was not operable. And with the footbar walker and the home health care, the therapist and all like that, he was able to stand up the very first time using only one leg, I might say, but he was able to get out and function with his family and everything for several months, and he got over the hip and then passed away later with heart failure. But at the same time, some people see this as a life changer, as a miracle walker, but we call it the footbar walker.
There you go. Well, we have to patent that miracle walker too. Well, anyway, there's actually a time and place for every type of assistive device. So if you're watching and listening right now, there's a time and place for using a single point cane. There's a time and place when you need to use a quad cane. Quad canes mean you got those 4-prong canes. There are time and place and appropriateness if you need a walker. Same thing if you need a rollating walker, the one with the 4 wheels. Same thing with the one with you have those scooters. So it really depends on the patient functional mobility, and really depends on the patient's participation level. And this particular walker here is appropriate for those patients who are having difficulty getting up, having difficulty pushing up on their chair, and obviously it's much easier for them to pull up. And like what Ms. Nancy said, there is specific type of patient. So if you've got any questions or any concerns or any violent reaction like a lot of people does, reach out to us. Reach out to my website, drmikechua.com, email us, or go to their website, footbarwalker.com, and investigate, watch all the videos that they've uploaded in that group or in that website, because there are a lot of patients who are actually convinced, that this really helped them. And, not all is appropriate for it, but majority will be, especially in our group that has a lot of, dementia patients, stroke patients, and, patients who just really needs to pull up from a bar and assistance from a caregiver. And just, I think a week ago, I had one patient and they had this, and it really made my life easier as a physical therapist, because all I need to do was step on that bar and the patient stood up. I didn't even have to put a gait belt, and I didn't even have to pull up the arms of that patient, because they were able to pull up from the bar itself. Last question.
Okay.
you have something to say?
I was just going to say, love for the caregiver and the patient was what caused us to want to do this. And I think personally that it's time that the caregivers were given some some assistance to help them in their daily lives deal with patients so that they don't become a patient.
I love what you said there. The love for the caregivers. Yes, we need to focus on our patients because we want them to get better. But sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, we need to also take care of our caregivers. You as a caregiver, you cannot give what you do not have. Just like money, I cannot give money to somebody else, to my kids, if I don't have money myself. I cannot give food to my kids, to my daughters, if I don't have food myself. Well, obviously I have food a lot here, but same thing with caregiving. You cannot give what you do not have. That's why it's called caregiving. You're giving care. With this device here, you're actually helping not only the patient, you're also helping the caregiver.
Absolutely.
The
Not
caregiver,
the patient.
yeah, the caregiver, I didn't have to stress my back when that patient stood up, because the patient stood up by himself and pulling up on the bar and using what you call the art of a 3-point angle, whatever you call that, Mr. Gary.
3-point contact.
3-point contact. 3-point contact is better than a 2-point contact. Obviously, the best is 4-point contact, but this is a 3-point contact wherein you're pulling from the patient to the walker and with the caregiver, and you're using what you call a leverage, and that's what you want to do. You want to have a leverage when you're trying to lift somebody or carry somebody.
The stress of the caregiving goes to the foot. You want to tell them about that?
Well,
we learn this later.
Basically, through talking with some university people, we found out that we had actually applied physics.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that after they explained it to us. But you're using your body weight as a counterweight.
Mm-hmm.
The caregiver uses their body weight as a counterweight, and the top bar offers a counter pull. And in nature, if you try to lift something, you will only exert the amount of energy that it takes to move the object. So if the patient is pulling 5 pounds of pull, then the caregiver automatically pulls 5 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
If they suddenly get into a distress and increase to 10, the caregiver automatically pulls to 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I wanted to point out, if a carpenter or a mechanic shows up at the work site and the mechanic has one screwdriver or the carpenter has a hammer, he's basically handicapped because he doesn't have his other tools.
That's true.
So the therapist, when you go into your clinic or a clinic, you may see 10 or 15 different items that you may not use all at once. But today you may need this and tomorrow you may need the next item. So we offer this just as another tool to go in the caregiver or the therapist toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
This, you may need it today and you may not need it for a while.
That's
And
true.
it's extremely portable.
Yeah.
It's something that my friend Peggy said she used it at least 11 times before noon just to get her husband out of bed and to the bathroom and up from the bathroom and things like that. And she used it all through the day, but it took all of that stress off of her.
You know what? And I think that's one of the many limitations that we're having, especially at home. I'm a home health therapist, guys. We don't stand the patient up all the time because it's so hard for the caregiver. We have to wrap that gait belt. We have to pull it from the arm. We have to buy a lift chair. How much is our lift chair? It's like $4,000, $5,000.
Close to 2,000. I know.
$2,000,
We had one friend that, or a customer that has a condition very similar to Lou Gehrig's disease, and he had all the tools at his home, even the lift chair. And his wife was taking treatment for bone cancer. It was really a sad situation, and so it turned out that he couldn't even get up out of the lift chair without her pulling on him. But with this, he was able to just pull up, stand, and sit. She had no stress on her anymore, and it was a really touching moment when he realized, that he had something that he could use that no longer taxed his wife to take care of him at home.
I love that you mentioned the lift chair too. We talked about lift chair. How much do they cost? $2,000, $3,000 for it. Well, I don't know how much they cost. This is less than how much?
Well, we've got it for $429.
$429. It's $429.
No, $424.99.
Or $424 or whatever, you know. But here's the thing: when you're using a lift chair, you're being dependent on that lift chair because it's lifting you up. You're not even using your legs, or you're not even using your arms. With this device, it's a win-win situation. You're helping the patient to get up, and they're actually exercising when they're pulling up on the bar, and they're actually using their legs, they're using their arms. And you can even do some exercise,
Absolutely.
an exercise program here. You know, what I did on that patient that I had the other day, we did sit to stand exercises. So basically, I'm going to show it to you later in a minute. You know, we're going to do some simple exercises that you can do in this walker here and show you. You know, just be safe. You know, this is just disclaimer. Don't do it. But obviously, we're going to show you what you can do in this type of walker. What kind of exercise that you guys can do.
Okay.
So, Mr. Gary.
Dr. Chua,
Yeah.
is that correct, Dr. Chua?
Just call me Michael.
Michael? Okay. I have trouble calling the doctor Michael, but okay. One thing, you were talking about the lift chair, and the person that Nancy mentioned that had the debilitating condition, and his wife, when he was in the lift chair, it was really difficult for him to come up from a straight chair. So the lift chair brought him up to about 45 degrees, but he still could not make that final move to stand upright. So this, in combination with the lift chair, solved the problem.
There you go.
And he was able to, he actually had a gait belt that he wore pretty much all the time. But with this, his wife did not have to use the gait belt, and she had been lifting behind, as you mentioned earlier, to help lift him, and it was putting her in a really awkward position. But if the patient is in a lift chair, this is great to help get them to the upright position, because the lift chair will only bring you up to a certain angle. Then the patient is on their own to finish, get to the upright position.
You're speaking of angle. He mentioned about angle. When you're trying to pull up in a regular walker, your wrist is in a certain angle. So, for example, I'm pulling up. Okay, I don't know if you see me, guys. So I'm pulling up with my wrist without the bar itself here. If I'm going to pull up here on this angle here, in this angle, we call it a neutral angle. And your wrists are in what's called the ulnar deviation, or sounds fancy, but it's something like this. You know, the movement is like this. So if I'm pulling up like this on this angle, it's hard for me. It's gonna hurt my wrist. If I have carpal tunnel syndrome, it's gonna be hard for me. But if I'm in this angle like this, see, I'm in a neutral position, neutral angle of my wrist. It's much easier for me to stand up. I hope that makes sense. But you know, that's the purpose there. If you're pulling up in a regular walker like this, it's hard. See, I mean, I can't even do it. Even people who work out in the gym will have a hard time pulling up in this angle.
And
But
pushing up from that chair.
But if you're in this type of angle, what kind of position is this when you're doing this in that position? It's actually a bench press movement. And it's a natural movement for a person to get up. All right, I'll stop talking. All right, Mr. Gary, this next question is this covered by Medicare or insurance? Can you explain to us why we can't have insurance pay for it or something like
I'll
that?
let Nancy, she actually dealt with Medicare on that.
Okay.
The first answer is no, Medicare does not cover it. They told me that it was classified as a luxury item for the caregiver. But the base walker, which is a E0143, when the doctor prescribes a base walker, possibly that portion of our walker could be applied.
When you say the base walker is the actual
whatever
walker
a base
itself.
walker, it's a E0143. That's the HCPC number for that.
Okay.
But as far as covering the whole item, they don't get it yet. But
Okay.
I think when enough people realize the impact that it can take on not only the patient but the caregiver to prevent in home settings where you've got an elderly person taking care of an elderly person, as long as that caregiver has a sharp enough mind to understand the mechanics of this, the physicality of it is as easy as a woman putting her foot down. And that's what I did when I thought of this, foot bar. I just said, why don't you put something here? And he jokes and says, Nancy put her foot down. But amazingly, we've had physical therapists and nurses to say, I've put my foot on the wheel, I've put my foot on the frame, I've done everything in the world. Why didn't anybody ever think of this foot bar?
You mentioned that. I've done this before. I would ask the patient, obviously we put the gait belt or we pull on the arm, and I put my foot right here on the middle of the bar there. And
Real balance.
it was, it's not really safe, but I know because I'm skilled to do it. But if you ask a caregiver to do that, that's not really safe. All right, I'm going to ask you guys if you can show it to me how to use it, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to be the caregiver and Mr. Gary will be the patient, right?
Yes, he's the old one.
All right. I'm going to move all these chairs over here. All right.
Is this position okay?
Oh, yeah. Let's move closer over here.
Okay.
There you go.
I don't know if the table will block you or not.
Let me see. Yep.
You want us to move it out this way?
I think we're good. Yeah. There you go.
We have found that the placement should be about the end of the person's toes because that's about where a person gets to sit down. It's this far out. The caregiver brings the walker, places it in front of the patient. They put one hand on the top bar, rotate the foot bar down, step back in a comfortable power position. Now they're ready for the patient to put their hands on the top bar, and they pull up as if they're pulling up on a church pew. That's what we tell people. And they come up that easy.
Wow.
We have seen people that would normally have Parkinson's, tremors, essential tremors, that actually don't tremor. It comes up. And then I would step up and take my foot off, and he would be able to walk with the walker.
Right.
Then when he goes to sit down, you do it in reverse. He would back up. I would again apply my hand and my foot, step back and allow him. And this gives the patient an opportunity to slowly descend so that they don't have that flop and drop. And we have found that that really helps a lot of people too.
Amazing.
If a patient, for example, had a bad shoulder, show them how they could do that. You could do that. Okay. Now,
Amputation.
yeah, and another example is if a person has a bad leg,
Or
or
amputation.
amputation or whatever, this is how it works.
Awesome. You
And
see that?
I'm here. I'm the caregiver. I'm you. I'm the nurse. I'm the physical therapist.
I hear some joints popping there, so.
I hope that's the walker.
That's the walker.
Okay. Was that really your bones popping?
No, I think it was.
Just kidding. All right, let's show.
So that's the way it works.
One thing you asked earlier about safety precautions with this, should this be along with someone and they do try to utilize it, it's virtually impossible for them to utilize this foot bar because they're in a position that they can't stand up.
Not unless you have a really, really long leg, right?
You'd have to have like a 12-foot leg. And
Okay.
then you're in this position, and it's still, even with your leg out in that extended position,
There's
it's
still-
almost impossible to stand up. So that's why the caregiver
You need
is
this.
allowed to have eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
You can maintain your patient's condition. You can instruct them, even with, I know you deal a lot with dementia patients where you have to instruct them each time what they're to do. You're able to look at them, eye-to-eye contact, and keep your body straight. at the
I'll
same
show you
time.
what I did if you'd like.
Yeah,
with
go
a
ahead.
dementia
Yeah.
patient. I was told that this lady was virtually impossible to get up, and so what I did this, and I reached over and I got her hand and I put it here.
Mm-hmm.
I reached over and got her hand and pulled it here. And then I looked at her and I said, we're gonna stand up now. And I started this and she came right up.
There you go.
And then you can hold their hands until they feel secure sitting down.
Tactile touch is very important. You're basically you're putting pressure on the patient's joint or hand. So that's very good technique too. All right, so thank you very much, Ms.
Okay.
Nancy, Mr. Gary, for
You're
being a patient and a caregiver.
Thank you.
One thing, for safety-wise, when you're fitting a walker with your patient, you have to make sure that the handlebar is on the hip joint. Why? Because if it's too low, you're gonna hurt your patient's back. If it's too high, you're gonna hurt your shoulder. So when you're fitting it, make sure it's on the hip joint. This is perfect for me. Obviously, it's a little bit lower for Mr. Gary, but that's how you want to measure it. It's obviously adjustable here on the bottom. You can adjust it there and just make sure, like what I said, it's on the hip joint. And that's the most optimal way. So the different exercise that you guys can do with your patient with this, obviously, is sit to stand.
Let me do that.
Let's go ahead and do that, Ms. Nancy.
I need the exercise.
So basically, same thing what she did. She put her feet down on the floor, just like a woman, and you just ask the patient to. Oh, see, she's training me. I put my hand in the middle, and you just tell the patient, "Hey, go ahead and stand up and sit down for 10 times." So you want to do that, Miss Nancy, for 10 times. So this is what she's doing, going up and down. Basically, I'm asking you to count out loud. Don't hold your
4.
breath. Very good. So you're asking her to
5.
count and breathe.
6.
And it's basically a good exercise.
7.
I need to be doing that right now, right? We need to be doing that, Mr.
I
Gary.
feel it in my core. I
So,
feel it in my legs.
There you go. So let me put my feet down real good. So
Okay.
because she's pulling on it. So basically, I'm also pulling on it. So it's basically a sit to stand exercise machine too. All right, so aside from doing that, aside from doing a sit to stand exercise, just keep standing, Miss Nancy, again. What you can also do with your patient is marching in place. You ask them to march in place. Go ahead and march in place, Miss Nancy. They're basically lifting your feet up and down. Very simple. What you can do is ask the patient to lift it a little bit higher. A little bit higher. Try to hit my hand with force. There you go.
Oh.
I'm
sorry.
Not too far.
I'm old, but I'm strong, right?
I think that's the first stage of dementia, right? So you're asking her to hit your hand. It's a good exercise. All right, you can stop now, Miss Nancy,
Okay.
before you hurt me.
No.
All right, just keep standing. Another exercise that you can do is basically having your patient hit their hand with the opposite hand of yours. So your left hand, Miss Nancy, try to hit your left hand. Left hand, hit your left bottom, and then hit my right hand on here. That's a good exercise there. Very good. You're basically wanting to use that shoulder. Another way is to actually ask the patient to twist their body. So basically twisting their body there. Simple exercise that you guys can do
We need to
with
turn this
just
place
the
into
use.
a gym, don't we?
Yeah, just the use of the walker. So same thing here, opposite side. Put your left foot forward, ma'am. Your left foot, there you go. And then twist that body. Very simple exercise that you guys can do with your patient. All right, so before I give all my techniques, go ahead and check the walker, footbarwalker.com. If you need a discount, reach out to me, reach out to Miss Nancy. We'll be happy to give you a discount on the price itself. We're here not to make millions. We're here to help other people, bring out the best in them. Obviously, we want to make billions, right? But, we're here to bring out the best in you, bring out the best in your patient, and bring out the best in caregiving. And that's what we're here for. They wouldn't do this just to be,
We can't take it with us. Is
There
what
you
we
go.
say,
Yeah.
but we feel good in our
Mhm.
hearts that we
So
have something.
God has put the idea on them. Let's use it, bring out the best in your patient and also in your caregiver. All right, again.